Welcome, and thanks for joining us today for our 33rd episode of the Restaurant Dealmaker Show, where we discuss pertinent topics regarding the food and beverage industry with industry professionals. My guest co-host today is Brandon Robinson, a seasoned entrepreneur with an impressive track record. My journey with Brandon began back in 2018 at the Western Regional Food Service Show at the bustling Los Angeles Convention Center. Our paths crossed again a couple years ago when I had the pleasure of showing him around the Thirsty Bear Brewery in San Francisco, where he was scouting potential locations for his innovative Tipsy Putt venture, which we're going to discuss in detail shortly. Despite his young age, Brandon boasts a rich entrepreneurial background. His business journey started with his parents, who owned a small video production store in the Bay Area. In 2005, he founded his own production company, One Source Media, offering marketing and video production services to corporate, educational, and governmental organizations. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, Brandon lost most of his clients, and in 2010, he pivoted out of the video production industry, taking a national sales director role with a medical device company in Las Vegas. After a merger and corporate headquarters move to Canada, he left this role in 2012. In 2014, Brandon founded Skin, Body, Soul, the first multi-state, multi-unit membership-based medical spa, which he partially exited to Orange Twist Med Spa Group in 2017 and fully exited through private equity group in 2022. His entrepreneurial spirit didn't stop there. He's also the co-founder of LOMS Investments, which stands for Love of Midtown Sacramento, which is a real estate holding company. He served on the board of the American Medical Spa Association and is a limited partner in the Growth Factory Venture Fund and is an active angel investor with the Sacramento Angels, which deals with startup businesses. In 2017, Brandon discovered Flat Stick Pub in Washington State, which is a unique blend of a casual pub, mini golf course, and original golf-themed games facility. This inspired him to create Tipsy Putt, a hyper-local mini golf experience combined with craft beer and casual Mexican fare. Designed with adults in mind, Tipsy Putt is a haven for date nights, team building events, birthday parties, and friendly gatherings. With locations in Sacramento, Emeryville, South Lake Tahoe, Monterey, and Sunnyvale, Tipsy Putt continues to grow with new locations on the horizon. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Brandon, and I want to start off by welcoming him and asking him the first question, which is, how did you get started in the restaurant industry, so to speak?
Thank you, Steve. Well, first of all, is this over? I mean, that was quite a long introduction.
Yeah.
Uh, I love, there's, it's funny you say I'm relative. You said I'm young, and I feel like I feel like I've lived several lives, and I am in my 40s. So I don't know where the definition of young is. But yeah, so I think that the story of how I got in the restaurant industry is like I said, it's an incredible story. I've never served a table in my life. I've never worked at a restaurant in my life. I've never cooked. I've never been involved in the restaurant industry whatsoever. None of my family members are involved in the restaurant industry. Discovered a company that I fell in love with called Flat Stick out in up in Seattle, Washington. I happened to have a team building event, like a dinner when we had opened our location in our Bellevue, Washington location. This is circa April of 2017. And I was very involved in a company called Skin, Body, Soul. And we took our nurses and we took our physician and we took our staff to this pub. And we had no idea that there was a miniature golf course inside of it, that it was this uniquely themed miniature golf bar. And I was stunned as a golfer myself and someone who loves the game of golf. And I love craft beer. I'm a big beer fan. I thought, man, right in my head instantly, I said, this is an incredible idea. This is a great concept. It reminds me of like a bowling alley, but in a much smaller version. And I had seen other concepts like this around the world, but I had never seen a miniature golf course. I had seen shuffleboard, I had seen darts, you've seen bowling, you've seen even duck pin bowling at the time had been gaining momentum. And I thought to myself, this is something special. This is an incredible idea. And I immediately asked the host to put me in contact with the owner. And she reluctantly gave me the information of the owner to email him, of which I did. And he immediately shut me down and said, no, we're not interested in any type of expansion. We're not a franchise. We're not corporate. And so that's kind of how I stumbled into this industry. And there's obviously more to that story, but it's honestly just I found it to be a unique experience. I love unique experiences. My wife and I have traveled to over 45 countries around the world, and spent a lot of time traveling in my short life. And we hadn't seen anything like this. And when you come across something that's so unique, so special, it was generally just I just am intrigued. I'm just an interested person, and I was just excited by it. And so that's kind of how I stumbled upon it. It was simply just this unique business concept, and I thought I can do this. I could take this to my hometown, which is Sacramento, California, and we have a great beer scene, and it would be so easy. It's so simple, but obviously it's a little more in depth than that. So that's how it all got started.
I see. So what's been your involvement as far as in the operations of Tipsy Putt?
Operationally, I'm very involved in a lot of the marketing, a lot of the vision, a lot of the real estate, a lot of the transactions. I am not as involved in the culinary. I am not as involved in the staffing. I don't have a say in the staffing per se. I allow our managers to make those decisions, and I'm in charge, or I'm the president of the company. I kind of oversee everything, but I am in charge primarily of our management teams, which then manage all the players, and we build upon. We have each individual unit that builds upon each section of our restaurant.
Yeah, typically, what is the size of these operations? The typical Tipsy Putt, how many square feet? What's the lot size? Building size, etc. What's your criteria on that?
Yeah, so we are a big restaurant. 14,000 square feet is our average size. Our smallest location is 9,000 square feet. That is the location in South Lake Tahoe. However, it has a 3,500 square foot patio, and our location in Emeryville, California, which is just a hair under 14,000 square feet, has another 1,250 square foot patio. So that's kind of our general size, anywhere between 10 and 14,000 square feet. And in the future, I don't know, we might be able to shrink it down. But I mean, there are some variables in our business that are unlike other restaurants. Our golf course itself takes up nearly 2,000 square feet. Our 1-2 putt game, which is a game that is a combination of golf and shuffleboard, that game takes up approximately 1,000 square feet. So you wipe off 3,000 square feet just in the games themselves. Plus, you've got a kitchen, you've got a bar, you've got party room spaces. So, I mean, it is a large format facility.
Yeah. So how does the revenue break down as far as percent of sales between food and beverage versus golf revenue and game revenue, I guess?
Gaming revenue accounts for nearly 30% of our revenue.
Okay.
Yeah, with food and beverage split almost down the middle after that.
Got it. Yeah, sounds like a very, I hate to say it, I haven't been to one, but I definitely, after this interview, I'm going to definitely get to one very shortly. Very intriguing. My grandkids love to play miniature golf, so it sounds like they're too young though for you're the kind of crowd that you attract. I mean, typically it's adults, right, that go to your place. Do you allow kids? Do you have many kids that go to your places?
So we do have a lot of kids that come to our place, but we are not centered around kids. And our mini golf concept, and this is one of the reasons why I fell in love. Going back to the original story of what I love about it, I am a golfer. My family's golfers. My father was an assistant pro at a golf course, and my brother was on the PGA Tour actually.
Oh,
And we are like all golfers. And what I loved about this particular concept and why I fell in love with it is because it's not miniature golf, your traditional windmills and dragon tongues. It is a competitive environment. It is a challenging course with real turf grass, like green turf grass. It has multiple pin placements on holes. So you have a hard hole and an easy hole you can swap out. We do league nights. We putt with real putters. So you can walk in and putt with a ping zing putter or an Odyssey putter. You're not putting with some, silly mini golf putter. You can be putting with a Pro V1 golf ball. You can be putting with a silly pink ball with a SpongeBob on it. It's all over the map, but it's applicable to kids as well as adults. But what I wanted to emphasize is that it is very golf forward. It is a little bit more. It's a little bit more challenging, a little more fun for the actual golfer versus someone who is just out for a mini golf experience.
got it. Got it. So with all the diverse business experiences you've had in your short life, what has been the most challenging in your career?
Well, in my short life, obviously I came out of college. I graduated college in 2004, started my first company in 05. The first real experience that I had in business, I was every year was progressing in my business, One Source Media, and then the financial crisis of 2008 hit. And I had a heavy amount of contracts in that business with government. And what I learned is that the government and anyone really at any point in time can simply cut you off. And so the biggest, I mean, other than the I'll tell you about the two largest challenges I've experienced. That challenge right there, which I will say helped prepare me for COVID. COVID was obviously only we had opened our first restaurant in the fall of 2019. It was November 1st of 2019 was our official opening date of Tipsy Putt. We had operated for 4 months, got shut down.
Wow.
And that was extremely challenging. That was, I mean, I empathize with everyone in the restaurant business. I thought I was convinced that I was done. We had put this in perspective, and I really want to. This is a fun one. I want to go down a little path on. To put this in perspective, I had five. Excuse me, I apologize. I had 4 Skin Body Soul locations open in 2020. I take that back. I apologize. We have to revert this back, so you have to cut that out. I apologize. We had 2 Skin Body Soul locations open in 2020 because we had recently sold a couple in 2017. I had opened our first restaurant in 2019, which was Tipsy Putt, and at the time I had about altogether about 75 employees. And when that happened, we all knew it. We all were involved. We had to lay off everyone. And it was devastating. And quite frankly, going through the previous financial challenge of the 2008, 2009 financial collapse, I thought I was toast. Like I was preparing my wife. We were preparing for, bankruptcy. I didn't see any way out of it. I couldn't operate our locations in Iowa, which are our Skin Body Souls. We couldn't operate our Tipsy Putt locations. We had just opened our restaurant, so I had a lot of cash that had been withdrawn out of my accounts. I didn't have a tremendous amount of liquidity at that time, and I thought for sure I was done. And behold, what I did not expect was that the government would come up with these programs, PPP and others, that would help pretty much save us. And I will say that we were a zombie company for several months. And yeah, I mean, between COVID and between the financial crisis of 2008, I want to say I feel like I'm invincible and I could take on anything. But at the same time, I don't know if we would have survived if it wasn't for some of those government programs that existed. And I want to emphasize one other thing of that. I had some diversification with Skin Body Soul because we're in the medical industry, and we were in the state of Iowa, which happens to be a very um, a conservative state that was very business friendly and didn't want to shut down businesses and wanted to stay open. And so we were able to stay open with our Skin Body Souls months after the whole world had shut down, and we got revenues flowing quickly again. So I was able to collect PPP for that business because, of course, I had a track record. Tipsy Putt was a whole other story. I don't want to go down that path, but I was able to collect some government assistance in that business and remain open, which a lot of businesses weren't. And that allowed me to build up that liquidity again, keep the bills going, and then be able to take some equity out of that business and shuffle it over into Tipsy Putt and help keep Tipsy Putt alive. Go out and chat GPT, or you can go on Google and look these leadership skills up. But in my opinion, and these are from personal stories, that I think that the best qualities of leadership, number one, has got to be follow through. I feel like I'll give you an example of this. Pedro Rivera, who is a Fox 40 news correspondent here in Sacramento, he moved here recently. This is circa 2018 when we finally wanted to open Tipsy Putt. I was at a bar with him, met him through a colleague acquaintance, and started talking to him and noticed his passion for news. And he was like really passionate about news. And I really love people who are passionate about things. Steve, you're very passionate about the restaurant industry. Every time I've had a conversation with Steve, he goes back to Zim's. He talks about his family. He talks about, he gets very excited about the deals he's done and the opportunities in the space. And anytime I meet people who are passionate about what they do, I'm very intrigued by this. And we were just talking, and I said, give me your phone, give me your cell phone number. I'll text me your address, and I'm gonna send you some Tipsy Putt gear. And he said, okay, so he gave it to me, and then he was leaving. And I didn't think that I would follow through and send a nice, beautiful package with a shirt, some hat, and some stuff to wear. And he received it. He took a picture of it, posted it on social media, and then he immediately called me and said that no one's ever done that. No, people tell me all the time they're going to do things, and they just never follow through with doing them.
Right.
And especially in an environment like, you're out at a restaurant, you're in a bar, something, and you don't expect people to follow through on their word. But I think that is one of the best qualities of a leader, is someone who follows through. If someone asks me for a favor and says, hey, do you know someone in a certain industry that could help me, or do you know, I've recently, like, an attorney, I'm looking for a family law attorney. I said, yeah, I happen to know a family law attorney. He's an acquaintance of mine, a friend of mine, and I'll connect you. So I went on my phone, I text messaged him to make sure it was okay that I connected them. And it's just that kind of follow through is really important. And I think that's one of the best qualities of being a good leader. The second quality, I think, is putting others first, taking yourself out of the spotlight and allowing others to have the spotlight. This is probably one that won't come up very often, but it's something that you'll notice if you Google Tipsy Putt and you look at the media that's on Tipsy Putt. You'll generally find that a lot of the people who are speaking on behalf of the company are not me. It's our managers that we put in the spotlight, our executive chef, or even our kitchen managers will put in the spotlight. We put our AGMs in the spotlight. We'll put our community managers in the spotlight. These are the people that are on the ground in those markets, and I don't need to be in those places every single time. So by removing myself and making sure that other people tell your story, I think that makes you a bigger person, a bigger leader. So again, I think putting other people in the spotlight, raising other people up, making other people rock stars. I think that is something that is an incredible leader, or incredible quality for any leader. I'll just mention two more, like that I'm kind of thinking of. Number one is, two more. Number three, I guess. I think being open to change. When I started in this industry, one of the reasons why I was attracted to Flatstick and why I wanted to create our own business is because it was in a basement and it was a miniature golf bar, and it had these extra components that I saw as opportunities in a space that there weren't. And what I mean by that is that if you're in a basement, your rent is generally 50% or one third of what the rent would be on the main floor. So immediately in my mind, I thought, oh my God, understanding a little bit about real estate is that, hey, they're paying probably half the rent of the guy upstairs or the woman upstairs or the person upstairs. And that is an economic advantage. That is a competitive advantage that this particular concept has. Not to say that a restaurant can't do it. It just so happened that Flatstick Pub did it. And they did it twice. In Kirkland, it's in a basement. And in their Pioneer Square location, it's in a basement. And I thought to myself, that is brilliant because they're paying much, much lower rents, which means that their fixed costs are lower, which means that they are probably making more revenue per unit than a traditional restaurant would. Not that a restaurant couldn't be in a basement, but just hypothetically saying that's one of the advantages they have. So being able to open to change and adapt to circumstances. And what I mean by that now is that we come to COVID, and COVID happens, and we had opened in a basement, by the way. Our first location in Doco, Sacramento, is 12,000 square feet in a basement. It occupies an entire half city block. And we got rent at 50%, 50 cents on the dollar of what the tenants upstairs were getting. And when we did this and we opened, I thought, I penciled it all out and I said, this is super scalable. We should find basements in urban environments with no windows, limited doors, lighting controls, etc. And guess what? COVID hit. And nobody wanted to be inside of a basement.
Yeah.
So I had to rethink quickly and go, okay, there's a complete shift in the mindset of the consumer. And my entire business plan went out the door. And I thought we have to do indoor, outdoor spaces, patio spaces. We have to think through being on the main level. Okay, we're going to eat the higher rent. How are we going to sustain the higher rent? We're going to have lots of windows. We're going to have open spaces. We're going to be open more hours. I had to rethink of different ways. But being able to be open and adapt to change is definitely, I think, a huge quality of any leader. And being able to act on that change, I hate to say it, but kind of fearless.
Yeah.
Because you just have to believe in yourself and know that it's going to go through.
On the basement discussion,
I have one more.
Okay.
Basement discussion. Let's go.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me just talk about the basement thing for a minute, because in California, because of the paranoia, because of earthquakes, people are not adept to dealing in basement type, situations. Plus, the fire departments are, really, against egress. They have strict egress and ingress policies for getting out of basements. And so logistically, it's very difficult to make a basement, susceptible for a food and beverage, dining room, so to speak. So that's just my 2 cents on basements. I can't think of a restaurant in San Francisco that is operating in the basement. There may be, but it's doubtful. People like open airy feelings, and they like, especially now with the COVID thing over our head, et cetera. It hasn't been conducive for, food and beverage operations in California, for sure. Sorry. Next point.
No, I find that to be very fascinating. And I'll tell you why. Steve, I ask people all of the time what their favorite Tipsy Putt location is.
Mm-hmm.
And unequivocally, they will say Sacramento, California, Doco. And they say they love the feeling of being in a basement.
Oh.
So I understand the earthquake fear. I grew up in California. I went to University of San Francisco. I lived in San Francisco.
Yeah, right.
I believe it's an East Coast, West Coast mentality. I think when you head to the East Coast, you'll find a lot more basements. You'll find a lot more bars down steps. You find in the Midwest. I do think that there's just a lack of basements in the West Coast. They just don't exist, especially under the retail. But in regards to egress, you're right. We had to install a massive staircase going down to our space. And that was one of the ways that particular building that we have in Doco has 3 exit points all upstairs. And there are 3 staircases that go up. One that's, I don't know the width, but I want to say it's at least 12 feet wide, maybe 15 feet wide.
Okay.
It's a
Well,
large staircase.
okay, cool. Anything else on you said you had one other point about your qualities as a great leader? Was there one thing?
Yeah, I think there's one other. I think there's one other one. Just one more, and I think it's actually an important point too. You need to know a little about a lot. And what I mean by that is you have to kind of know people. You kind of have to know some things about accounting. You have to know some things about real estate. You have to know some things about sourcing or supplying ingredients. For me, when I mentioned I never worked in a kitchen, I've never bartended. But what I was able to empathize with the team member that was working in front of me, and I was able to empathize with the manager and understand, because I've been to a lot of bars and restaurants around the world. Going out is something that my wife and I particularly enjoy, and it's something that we do a lot of. So, I was able to. I think that knowing a little about a lot and having those ingredients to be able to see an opportunity and then seize an opportunity. I think great leaders just have to know a little bit about a lot of things.
Yeah, good point. I agree with you very much. So, jumping back and more into the restaurant discussion, how did you create value in your concept where a private equity group gained interest in your concept? I haven't had many co-hosts that have had experience, going through a private equity transaction. So could you explain to the group what a private equity group is and how that whole transaction came into play with the actual?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. A private equity group is essentially an investment fund of wealthy individuals or institutions that are investing in some individuals that are managing a fund. That fund is to produce a return on their investment, and there are certain parameters around the fund. That's in layman's terms, that's the simplest way of doing it. One other important item about a private equity group fund, or even a venture fund, or any fund for that matter, is that it has a beginning and it has an ending point. Generally, there are rules within the fund of what they can invest in, what they can't invest in. These are dictated by the individual investors or the institutions that are investing in these funds. For example, in the restaurant industry in particular, there are funds that have, and again, these are hypotheticals. I'm not naming individual funds for any reason, but let's say Brigham Young University has an endowment, and Brigham Young University is a Mormon institution in Utah, for those of you that are living under a rock. And that institution invests in, let's call it BlackRock. And as they invest in this fund into BlackRock, they say, okay, we've got $25 million that we're willing to put towards this fund that's in our endowment. It's for 5 years or 7 years, and we are trying to obtain a 10% return on our investment, or 12%. Anything over, we'll split with you, yada, yada. But in exchange, you can't have any sin in your fund. So you can't have alcohol sales. You can't have tobacco sales. You can't have gun sales, ammunition sales. So there's like thin restrictions, or certain restrictions around these funds that are then put in place. And so these private equity groups take these funds and they go around, they try to raise, let's just say hypothetically, $25 million. The larger ones are raising as much as, hundreds of millions of dollars. And what they do is they invest in businesses for a specific amount of time with a goal to grow that business at a faster scale than it could have grown organically, and then exit to a larger private equity company, or eventually take the company public. And in some circumstances, funds want to just have a channel to earn revenue. But that in the most simple terms, I hope that was simple.
Well said.
It's a savings account. Yeah, it's a savings account that yeah.
So how do you maximize the sale value of your operation to attract a private equity group?
So to attract a private, so first of all, there's a great saying that Ryan Serhant, who I have a big man crush on. If you guys don't follow Ryan Serhant, I hope he's listening to this podcast or hears this, because I've been trying to get lunch with him forever. He's a realtor in Manhattan. He actually has a new show on Netflix, but he says this statement that I think is so good. He says, you need to stop vying for attention. You need to start being so good that you can't stop getting attention. And I think that statement is just so brilliant. And one of the things that I'll tell you the things that private equity liked. And these are just principles to grow anyone's business by. And I think that a lot of people will benefit from this. Is that there are certain things they really, really like. And number one, they're going to want consistency. So they're going to want the ability to scale your business. And let's say hypothetically you own 3 restaurants in the Seattle marketplace. And one of your restaurants is 5,000 square feet. And another restaurant is 11,000 square feet. And the third restaurant is 15,000 square feet. That doesn't make any sense. It truly is like, if it's in the same marketplace and it's the same concept, there is a lot of inconsistency there. Some people might see through it, but there's a lot of inconsistency there. So if you open your first restaurant, and I'm saying this because I'm out here saying this because I know a lot of restaurant operators are listening to this, and I think this is important. If you open your first restaurant, let's call it Zim's, and it's 5,000 square feet, and immediately you see instant success, and your thought process is more tables, more servers, more revenue, larger location. That is actually not the right thing to be thinking about. The right thing to be thinking about is 5,000 square feet, absolutely killing it, crushing it. What are the reasons for that success? Okay, let's take those 3 or 4 main points, duplicate it at 5,000 square feet at the next restaurant. If that succeeds, and you've got another 5,000 square foot and it's killing it, now do another one at 5,000 square feet. If that one succeeds, now you have this proof of concept. You've got your size, you've got some revenue, you've got some success. Because I oftentimes see businesses fail because they'll go from a smaller unit or location to a larger unit and location, thinking that it's scalable up, and it's not. So like you asked me the question earlier before, Steve, about multiple locations. What is your size and scope? We try to keep it between 10 to 14,000 square feet. I think pre-pandemic, 14,000 square feet was our number. Post-pandemic, it's 10 to 12,000 square feet is our number. And it just has to do with a slightly less amount of volume. And I think we can keep our brand consistent. So consistency is important in order to scale. It's important on a number of reasons. Number 2, I think that you have to recognize the ability to scale. If your restaurant or your business costs millions of dollars to open, okay, and it takes 10 years to make your cash on cash return, meaning I put out $1 for my restaurant and I get 10 cents back per year, and it takes 10 years to break even on the money I put out for my restaurant, that is not, you're not going to have the ability to scale. So you have to have some economy, you have to have some scalability in your restaurant. And what I wanted to talk about too about economies of scale, another principle of economies of scale, is that a lot of these funds are invested in multiple restaurants or multiple items within the industry. Let's say they have a fund that's quote unquote heavy in the quick service space. Just hypothetically speaking, it's a hot space right now, is quick service. They are going to look for a QSR that is similar in size, similar in shape, and similar in operations to another QSR they have, because they know that as they grow, if things got tight or things got weird in the marketplace, they could potentially take the director of marketing of QSR 1 and install that same director of marketing in QSR 2 and start to blend the two, divide the costs, cut the fat, and be able to keep consistent revenue streaming in without any issues. So that's another important thing. Obviously, margins are a no-brainer. You want to make sure you have margins. Any hacked margins, so anything that you as your restaurant owner, as a restaurateur are doing, if you have a supplier that you're getting some sort of a deal on that is unique or even IP to yourself, that's something that private equity would love to get their nitty-gritty paws on. Key differentiating factors, you versus anyone else. What is somewhat different? We want to have, you don't want to be the same as someone else. You want to have some key differentiating items. And lastly, one that I actually had no idea about until I got into the restaurant industry, because I just thought every private equity company in the world was interested in Skin, Body, Soul. We had interest from so many different avenues because there's so much activity in that medical space and roll-ups and professional services, is that in the restaurant space, you have to find the private equity group or fund that is interested in that, in your space, let's call it QSR, and at your volume, let's call it revenue. There are, I went to the Restaurant Finance and Development Show, the RFDC in Las Vegas.
Spoke there. Yeah.
The first time I attended, the first time I attended the RFDC show, man, I had the biggest wake-up call of my life. I felt like going from the most popular person in the room to the least popular person in the room, and going to different equity funds and communicating to equity funds as someone who wants to grow their business and take their business to the next level, and getting completely shot down, having no idea that, I'm sorry, but you have alcohol games. We only do QSRs without alcohol. Or your revenue is X. You only have 10 million in revenue. We won't speak to you until you're at 100 million in revenue. And I was like, okay. It was like, whoa, this is a major wake-up call. So there is a kind of a, I want to call it a matchmaking of sorts. You need to identify targets that are within what you're trying to do. So a great business coach taught me years ago, every business has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You have to know where you are in your business cycle, what your actual end goal is, because if you can figure out that end goal first, you can move much quicker towards that finish line. Without knowing what your end goal is, let's say your end goal is, I want 10 locations, I want $25 million in revenue, and I want 20% margin. If you can say that is the end, now you can kind of pencil out a plan and a vision that makes sense. But without knowing what the end is, if you're going in every day and kind of haphazardly getting excited about one location or putting out a fire in another location, you're just all over the damn place, you won't be able to succeed on the real growth mission and the real growth exit. And it's something business people, investors, for example, they miss this all the time. They'll invest in GameStop and they don't know where it's going. They don't have an exit strategy. They just invested because someone else invested. It's $100. It's now 120. Hey, $120 in a week is insane. I want to just like emphasize that. If you buy a stock at $100 and in a week it's $120, you need to sell that stock. That is a 20% return in 7 days. And then you need to get your cash out and you think about, what is my next investment? What is my next investment? Those that lose are the ones that get greedy. Another great saying in business, pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. You got to know when to get out and have to pay attention to start with the end in mind. You must start with the end in mind. Where is my end? And there, now you know, who are my targets? Who do I talk to? Who are the people I need to communicate with?
Very sound advice. Yeah, very sound advice. Makes a lot of sense. So my last question to you, what are your future growth plans?
Oh, I see Tipsy Putt being a household name. I think that we can be in markets the size of Los Angeles and markets as small as Mino, North Dakota. We are a Main Street brand. We are a fun place to go. We consider ourselves, I consider ourselves neighborhood, not novelty. and that's something that we live by here at Tipsy Putt, is that we want to be a fun neighborhood sports bar, a competitive, fun environment with great food, great drinks, and a great time for your family during the daytimes, and a great place to get away from your kids and enjoy a nice date night after 7 p.m. So I know, I don't know if that's too much of a canned answer, but I don't see us stopping anytime soon. There are points in our business model, beginning, middle, and end of this part. This is chapter 1 that we're in currently, where we're at 5 locations. But we do have plans to expand over the next 10 years very aggressively.
Yeah. So do you foresee yourself being a national operation? The Tipsy Putt
Yes,
concept?
we see ourselves being a national operation. Yes, the Tipsy Putt concepts should be a national operation within the next 7 to 10 years, if not sooner.
Sounds exciting. Well, with your past background, your experience, and your vision, I see there's a good chance of that happening. So if people would want to get in touch with you, Brandon, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
Should I put my personal email out to everybody? You guys anyone can email me. This makes me nervous as heck. You know what? The best way is to probably follow us on Instagram. It's at Tipsy Putt, or at Tipsy Putt location. So at Tipsy Putt Tahoe, at Tipsy Putt Sacramento. You can follow us, or at Tipsy Putt Doco, excuse me. You can follow us on there. And then my personal my personal Instagram is at Robinson Brandon.
Okay, wonderful. I want to thank you very much for the very informative presentation. I want to wish you best wishes for continued success. And if you have any questions, I'm talking to the audience from this presentation, please email them to me at steve@restaurantrealty.com, and I will respond shortly to you after the show. We are currently lining up our future Dealmaker show co-hosts for 2025, and they will be announced shortly. I want to thank you all for joining us today. And if you want to get in touch with me, again, it's steve@restaurantrealty.com, or you can reach us toll-free at 888-995-9701. Take care of yourself and take care of others, and stay well, and best wishes to you and your family for a very happy Thanksgiving. And Brandon, thank you very much. Enjoyed having you today.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Take care.